Hello guys, this is your Sir Erwin Bourbon, and this is your alternative learning material in creative writing. In this video, we will try to look into the differences between abstraction and concreteness, and we will also look into their importance in the world of poetry. Just a short review. In our parts of speech, abstraction and concreteness belong to noun. So when we say noun, it's a name of person, places, animals, or things. And when we say abstract noun, these are words, these are objects, or anything that cannot be perceived. Whereas concreteness or concrete noun, on the other hand, these are objects, human beings, or anything that can be perceived by our senses. In the world of poetry, every writer applies this technique in writing or in crafting their poems. They apply both abstraction and concreteness. Both abstraction and concreteness helps the reader build up an image reflected from how the writer arranged the words, narrate the stories, or use imagery to convey the message to the readers. In the last alternative learning material that I have sent you discussing about writing poetry, I have presented to you a poem. Now, what do you think is the kind of idea that poem tries to convey? Is it abstract or concrete? If we will try to analyze that piece, we can conclude that the poetry is concrete in nature. Why is it so? Because the writer have used words which are concrete nouns. And the overall idea of that poem is all about writing poetry, and writing poetry is a concrete idea. Okay? By definition, the adjective concrete denotes something that is existing in a material or physical form, real or solid, not abstract. Kumbaga, we can touch it, we can see it, we can taste it, or we can smell it. Okay, using our different senses. While the adjective abstract denotes something that is existing in thought or as an idea but not having a physical or concrete existence. For example, the idea about love. Love is an abstract idea. But how do we make love concrete? Shall we say, if someone, or let's say a boy, gives a girl flowers and chocolates. Now, that is conclusion of the abstract idea love. Because in the action nga paghatag sang flower or sang chocolate sa isa ka babae, it's a sign, it's a symbol of love. Okay? Therefore, we can conclude nga some abstract ideas can be put to become concrete depending on the action or of how these words are crafted in a poetry. As a general rule, something concrete is more perceivable to human beings than something that is abstract. This is because concrete objects rather than abstract ideas are more palpable to the five senses. So when we say palpable, they can be sensed, they can be perceived. Pigments and shapes, melodies and harmonies, fragrances and aromas, flavors and spices, textures and surfaces engage our sense perception precisely because they are concrete and thus more physically real. The subtlety of the colors of the rainbow, the urgency of a cry for help, the heavy scent of gardenias, the pungency of roasted garlic, the smoothness of watered silk. All these concrete objects are readily tangible to our sense of sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and so on. Whereas abstraction, in contrast, are more difficult to apprehend or grasp since they are basically big ideas or concepts that do not have corresponding objects or things directly associated with them. As a result, abstract ideas, unlike concrete objects, do not evoke vivid images and pictures inside the reader's mind. Once a line evoke an image or is something appealing to our senses by the use of imagery, then therefore those ideas, those concepts are considered to be concrete. Whereas if a concept is not forming any image or does not appeal to our senses, then therefore that is an abstract concept. Now, one of the distinguishing characteristics of a good poet is his or her ability to skillfully combine both concrete objects and abstract ideas to ensure that the message or insight of his or her poem gets conveyed across to the reader. In the hands of a competent poet, big themes like birth and death, love and friendship, joy and sorrow, and other abstractions become more tangible through the evocation of concrete images. We have here an example of a poetry with concreteness or element of concretion. The first one is entitled The Golf Links by Sarah N. Cleghorn. The golf links lie so near the mill that almost every day the laboring children can look out and see the men at play. Now, this is a very simple poetry. It's brief but heavy. So, we will know later on kung aman heavy siya. So, this short satirical poem above, or this short poem tackles the issue of child labor. As you can see, the subject in this poetry are the laboring children. Okay, so notice that with only 4 lines, the American poet Sarah N. Cleghorn is able to depict a vivid picture or the injustice making the children of the working or lower classes do manual labor daily inside a mill, while adult members of the leisure or upper classes play in the golf course or the golf links day after day. So this poetry highlights the injustice in the society, wherein gin-highlight or gin-emphasize ang differences between two classes. So ang mga mayayaman ito gahampang golf sa golf course, whereas ang mga imol, specifically ang mga bata, nagaubra dito sa mill. Now, this poetry is an example of situational irony, whereas children are supposed to play and adult or yung mga matatanda are supposed to do the labor. But in this case, in this story, it's baliktad. Yung mga children yung nagtatrabaho, whereas yung matatanda or yung may edad yung naglalaro. So may kabaliktarang nangyayari or situational irony. The children of the poor being compelled to work in a factory day in and day out, while rich men could choose to play the elitist game of golf all day long. Now, this poetry is an example of concreteness because it shows a certain scenery or image using those concrete words. We have the golf links, we have the mill, we have the laboring children, and the play or the game. The overall concept is concrete. Okay. Next, The Two-Headed Calf by Laura Gilpin. Tomorrow, when the farm boys find this freak of nature, they will wrap his body in newspaper and carry him to the museum. But tonight, he is alive and in the north field with his mother. It is a perfect summer evening, the moon rising over the orchard, the wind in the grass, and as he stares into the sky, there are as twice as many stars as usual. The first stanza of the poem by Lara Gilpin describes the discovery the next day of a calf with two heads, or kung sa aton pa, if it's something unusual ang itsura, freak of nature na siya tawagon. By farm boys who will bring his dead body, animals that have gross abnormalities do not survive for long, to the Museum of Natural Curiosities for display. So usually no, ini mga animals nga may mga abnormalities, they are usually brought sa mga museum for studies and observation. The second stanza refers to the perfect summer evening when two-headed calf gets to spend some tender quality time in the north field with his mother, far away from the prying and judgmental eyes of curiosity seekers. A night that is portrayed with these concrete details: the moon rising over the orchard, the wind in the grass. The last concrete detail of the second stanza, and as he stares into the sky, there are twice as many stars as usual, contains the poem's insight that the two-headed calf with its two pairs of eyes can see more stellar bodies than an ordinary one-headed calf. Of course, kung dua imo ulo, apat imo mata. So, kumbaga, ang imo nakikita is twice sa nakikita sa normal nga creature. Okay? Now, this is an example of concreteness because the calf itself is concrete and ang environment around him, ang pag-describe sa iya, ang pag-describe sa iya environment is also perceivable by our senses. Kumbaga, we create or we have formed certain sceneries sa aton nga mind just by reading the text or the poem. So, nakita naman dira sa poemera nga as he stares into the skies, there are as twice as many stars as usual. The perfect summer evening, the moon rising over the orchard, the wind grass, etc. Okay, now that is an example of concreteness in poetry. Next, we have here an example of abstraction. So this is entitled Her Love, written in 2018. Heavy is the love, its scope is quite broad. Loud may be the sub, but light are these loads. In this verse, love, being the subject, is being described through explanation of its unique characteristics. It is said that love has a broad scope, meaning it is immeasurable by size. There are cries or sufferings, despite of the love as emphasized in there may be the sub. And the poet eventually turned it positively through an antagogy. So ano ang antagogy dito? But light are these loads. So as can you remember, no, antagogy means placing of criticism followed by a compliment. So the criticism there is loud may be the sub, and the compliment there is but light are this load. Or it could also be an understatement. So gina-underestimate na nga miskan daw may pagtangis o may kasubo sa pagigugma, pero okay lang, kakayanon, something like that. This uses common words and simplistic style in poetry, and it has an abstract concept, love, as its subject, making the poem generally an abstract one. Love only becomes concrete if there is an action involved. Example, when you give flower to your girlfriend during your mansari. So this shows a concrete love scenario. Okay, so again, the concept of love, and this example is an example of abstraction. Next, another example, we have Time, still written in 2017. We don't own it, We can't touch it. It's a pathway of no turning back. It's limited, it's short. It seems to be in a hurry always. We can't fight it nor stop it. We always chase for it. We can't seem to find it. Time heals, but it also hurts. But time is always now. Don't trade it, don't waste it. Use it wisely. Follow its pattern, for we are its slave. Time is our master, and we cannot escape from it. It's time. In this example, time is the subject. The power of time is the theme, making it an obvious abstract subject. So, sa siningang poetry, describe niya ang time. Nga, we cannot touch it. Nga, we are its slave. Nga, sunod-sunod kita sa time. Nga, hindi natin ini ma-stop. Hindi natin ini ma-own. Or hindi natin ini ma-wasak. Okay? So, the overall concept is abstract. Okay? Now, I hope you have understood the difference between concreteness and abstraction in poetry. Okay? So, malapos malina sila ma-differentiate. Again, basta concrete gani is something that is perceivable by our senses. Whereas ang abstract, yeah, it is something that is having no shape or something wala nag-appeal sa ating senses. Okay? Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have learned from this video discussion, and I hope you can apply those learning in your future outputs. God bless everyone.
Well, here's to the hearts that you're gonna break. Here's to the lives that you're gonna change. Here's to the infinite possible ways to love you. I want you to have it. Here's to the good times we're gonna have. You don't need money, got a free pass. Here's to the fact that I'll be sad without you. I want you to have it all.